Welcome to the Virginia is for Sports podcast with your hosts, Kevin Flippin as Flip, Paul Gilman as PG Fitty P, and Kenny Wingle as K-Dub. Let's play VA.
Everyone. Hey, guys, you know they say Virginia is for lovers, but guess what else? Virginia is for sports. What's happening? Let's get it going. How's everyone tonight?
If I was any better, I wouldn't know what to do with myself, Kevin.
Wow, that's good. K-Dub, how you feeling?
Wonderful, man. I like how you were so pumped up for that intro and the first things, and then by the time your sentence was done, you were super casual, taking a sip of Kool-Aid out of your James
Kool-Aid.
Madison cup, drinking
Big
the
Kool-Aid.
Quickest from jacked to chilled ever.
yeah. Are you guys ready to rock? All right. Have a seat.
You're right. That was an abrupt transition. I'll try to bring it down a little slower next time.
No, I love the energy. It
just went away
quick. Yeah, it wasn't.
Hey, we can get it back though. We can get it back. Here we go. Hey, speaking of, you said JMU, didn't you? Didn't you say JMU?
I
You
did.
said JMU.
Shout out to the Dukes. Lost another coach too, man.
Yeah. Getting ready to say big news out of Harrisonburg today. Coach Byington said bye. Headed off to greener, no pun intended, pastures at Vanderbilt. But I mean, the guy came in 4 years ago. They'd won 9 games, and he ended up taking them to the second round of the NCAA tournament. That's pretty dang good. I think JMU was, at least the athletic director, seemed pretty thankful and happy and ready to move on to the next chapter. So wished him well, and here we go. But JMU, God bless them, great tournament for them. I mean, beating a Wisconsin team, a Big Ten powerhouse like that, probably not the best Wisconsin team we've seen, but they handled them the whole game. Did y'all watch that game? That was pretty fun to watch. PG?
Yeah, I caught that one. I didn't catch much of the Duke one. I know they were out of it pretty early.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, the first round game, they were just so scrappy, and it's like, oh, they're going to be tough to beat. You know, just like the announcers were saying, they're just all over the place.
Yeah,
It's going to be hard, man.
I caught the highlights. I was super happy for them.
There's like a purple hue on you right now. Is that like a JMU thing? That's pretty.
That's what I was going for, Kevin. Exactly what I was going.
Are you going to change that if we start talking about UVA, which we're not, by the way?
I've got like 12 colors to rock here with.
Yeah, I think I do too. Actually, I need to check that out. But yeah, you're right, Kato. That Duke game, they were just. I think they came in and Duke jumped on them fast and put their foot on their neck and never let up.
Hold on, I watched the first half. I'll tell you exactly what happened. And look, K-Dub makes fun of me for always being coach guy and ref guy. But the best player for JMU, the guy that stirs the drink, the guy who's everybody from JMU says is their best player. He's the guy. And he's not only a really good basketball player, he is critical is not strong enough of a word because he got a second foul called with like 1 minute and 5 seconds into the game. He basically rode the bench the entire first half, and Duke goes on a crazy lead. The team was down. They clearly were not as good without him. And yes, it's Duke. But here's the ref comment. You have to understand that this 6'2" guard for JMU is trying to get decent position with Filipowski, who I believe is a 7-footer. And they're arm wrestling. I mean, they're trying to get leverage. And the guy doesn't have a great angle on who's maybe violating the rules more than the other. But a lot of refs will just let that stuff go, especially when it's a guard trying to deal with a 7-footer posting up. and they blew the second foul on him. I'm like, know what's going on in the game. Understand that if you call that second foul, you have the most influence over the outcome of this game. And I don't think that ref had been around long enough to understand it. And then I've got to listen to Grant Hill, who I actually kind of like, but unfortunately for Grant, he went to Duke, and I got to listen to him call Filipowski flip the entire game. Come on, man. That's Troy Aikman calling Cowboys.
That hurts me.
It's disgusting. They should never have a Duke guy cover a Duke game ever again. It drives me crazy.
No.
I feel you. That's how every time I hear a Joe Buck called game, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, flip another one. It's almost like they talk for half an hour before the game.
Romo or Aikman and the Cowboys.
Yeah, any of that.
I'll say this though: if you ever heard Jay Billis call a game, he's not much of a homer. He's very critical of Duke when he needs to be. I give him credit for that.
I can listen to Jay Billis call any game, to include Duke games. He's down the middle. He's objective. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a lawyer too, I think. So maybe that helps. I don't know. But yeah, so what you're saying, Paul, is they needed the Grand Canyon, Alabama refs at the JMU Duke game.
It would have been a very different outcome.
I think a couple people might have got arrested in that game. K-Dub, you said something earlier today. Like every time down the court, somebody was on the ground. I mean,
the announcers were counting them. I mean, they kept saying it. So every time down, there were at one point there were like 3 guys down in the front court and 2 down in the back court. That game was all over the place. I mean, there was a lot of people in foul trouble, but it was still rough. And the announcers like, this is one of the greatest games I've ever seen. And I was pretty hyped up for it, you know. I was excited. And then it kind of chilled out.
Yeah. It's the theme for the night, too. So,
because I grabbed my cup. I don't know if you caught that, but I'm not
I
explaining
did.
it all.
And you know, it's funny. All we ask out of referees is to be consistent, right? Just be consistent. I mean, if you're not going to call any fouls, then don't call any fouls. If you're going to call chippy little tiny fouls, call them. Nickel and dime us all night, but at least let us know.
They were pretty consistent. I mean, they let a lot of stuff go, and there was still a lot of people in foul trouble. That's how bad it was. It was like the only fouls they called were ones that they absolutely had to call.
Yeah.
And people were still in foul trouble. That's how aggressive that game was.
So, JMU, a graceful exit, even though they got their butts kicked by 30. It was still a good run. I think to set them up for future success. You know, depending on obviously who the next coach is going to be. Longwood, we don't have to talk about Longwood for too long. They God bless them. They were there. They gave it an effort, but I think they were just overmatched from Jump Street against Houston. So, good job, good season for Longwood. I'm not going to talk about UVA. I think we might have touched on them a little bit last week, KW, or did we? Maybe we didn't. Paul, would you like to talk about UVA at all?
UVA didn't belong in the tournament. That game proved it. You can't go 52 minutes of actual time from the middle of the first half to some point in the second half without scoring a single point. You don't belong. They've got to blow up that entire approach, the way they think about recruiting, all of it. They've got to start over.
Yeah.
All right, coach is here. We ready to bring him in?
I heard somebody say something about the UVA can't go down the court and do patty cake, and then try to score. I thought that was hilarious.
All right, I'm adding coach. Y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
Coach, what's going on?
Nothing much. How you doing?
I'm doing great. K-Dub is Kenny. You can call him either. I hope you can see him on the screen. And Flip also goes by Kevin. Tony goes by Tony or Coach, or to maybe some of the folks listening to this, Mr. Szymendera, depending on their age or their generation. Tony, I got to go to your hot stove event. I think it was your second one, right? Or was that your first one?
That was our second, yes.
Yeah, pretty good turnout.
That was great turnout. Great turnout. Far exceeded expectations when you're trying to get something new off the ground. We had about 80-some folks the first year, and hope to beat 100. And we were much closer to 150 than we were to 100. So we were ecstatic with that turnout for a little high school event. So good stuff. It was really good stuff.
The class of '87 was pretty well represented.
It was both in number and in size. Guys represented well. I was very proud of you.
But by size, I think you mean both height and girth, perhaps.
You take that any way you'd like. I'll let you fill in the blanks. I'm a nice person. I'm an educator.
So, but you don't mind a little double entendre either.
If I could spell it, yeah, I'd be all for it.
Yeah. So I don't want to date you, Coach, but this is your 36th or 37th season.
37th.
37th season with one high school's baseball program. I know you would never say this about yourself. I can't imagine you even think this, but in certain baseball circles, you're legendary or approaching legendary status. Am I overstating that?
Yes. Yes. It just means no one has taken up the time to try to find a replacement, because that, is a task, and I'll just keep doing it. They'll let me keep doing it. I've committed no crimes that I'm aware of and things like that.
Coach, just to orient you, K-Dub, Kevin and I all love baseball. K-Dub's from Detroit, so he's a Tigers fan. Kevin's from Richmond, so he's a Padres fan.
Of course.
And I'm from Richmond, so I'm an Astros fan. And correct if I'm wrong, you're a Philly fan for every sport, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's in the blood. Can't help it. DNA, born and bred. So.
Well, and we won't get into the brotherly love thing. And I know there's legitimate history to that, but it certainly doesn't put off that vibe the last, 3 or 4 decades. We'll leave that one alone.
It's only a problem if it bothers you.
Hey, fair point.
Hey, Coach, that's a great third baseman that I've got behind me, but who's the greatest third baseman of all time?
Mike Schmidt.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I think we all agree.
I love Mike.
All right. Hey, so Tony, you grew up playing football, basketball, and baseball, but you've obviously gravitated. You've spent almost 4 decades coaching, and you played from 8 to 22, or roughly 8 to 22. Mm-hmm. What is it about the sport of baseball that really keeps your attention?
Well, I actually think it's something we talk about all the time on the field with the kids, is that it has some of the best elements of individual sports, but also team sports, meaning you can't hide on a baseball field. You can try to go to a position where there's maybe less action, and you're not the center of attention. You don't have, not everybody's the pitcher, but at some point you got to put a stick in your hands and come up and face somebody who's, depending on the level, throwing harder than you might like, who can make the ball move, and it's one-on-one. So like I appreciate wrestlers, for instance, who go on a mat, in that little singlet, for all the world to see. There you are, and you can't say, well, Billy didn't do his job, that's why I'm on my back and getting pinned. It's that guy's either better, you're not as prepared, he had a better day, whatever, but it's you. And that's pretty cool. But, at the same time, you don't get that, you might win your match and the other 13 guys don't. You don't do well as a team. You can't really help each other. There's no assist from one weight class to another. And that's in baseball, like, there is a thing such as, team hitting, what the guy down in the order does to, does he go out in 2 pitches or 3 pitches, or does he work counts and get on base, or even if he makes an out, but he's making a guy work so that when he gets to the top of the order, 1, 2, and 3 are hitting against a guy with, more pitches thrown than fewer. And, so you may not succeed even individually, but you've helped the team. And I just think that's a fascinating part of the game, that, if you say you want to play, okay, but you got to be a big boy or big girl at some point and get up there and hit. So I think that's one. And the other thing is kind of off the wall in the sense of, 37 years, I will see something that on the baseball field this year that I've never seen happen before. I don't know what it is, but something will happen because someone will throw a ball to a place that you're not really supposed to, or the ball will tip, or something will happen. We can go back over 30 years, and every year the coaches now look at each other at some point again, go, never seen that before. and that's with hundreds of years of experience. And it's kind of cool because the game has an unpredictability about it. Everybody's different sizes, shapes, they run differently. So there, obviously a lot of balls get hit to shortstop and they're thrown to first, and there is a predictability about that, but there's also just kind of the wildness of the game that you never know.
All right. What's one thing you know about baseball today, and think from a coach's perspective, that you wish you knew 36 years ago?
Oh gosh. I think it's that the game at some level gets easier the higher you go. And that sounds a little counterintuitive, but a great experience with one of our guys, Nick Biddison, who's in the Dodger system this year, and last year was his first year, and he was in rookie ball, and then he was bumped up to A. And I asked him about that. I said, "Well, was it more harder with guys?" He goes, "Oh no, A ball was so much better. Those guys knew what they were doing, and they threw it over the plate." He said, "In rookie ball, he said, you got some 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid. He throws one behind your head. The next one's, breaking off over the plate." He says, you don't know. He said, now, obviously the farther you go up, they're throwing harder. They got better spin and moving on balls, but at least you have a sense of where the game is going to be played over those 17 inches. And, I think as a kid, you have no sense of that. You just see, the all-star out there who's throwing hard. And if you really had the sensibility of an older person, more experienced person, you might go and go, "Oh, I just got to pick a spot." Now you still got to hit it, but and not everybody can. But I think that's one of the things that we learn. We try to teach the kids that, look, in varsity, the guys are going to be more around the plate than they were in JV or 8th grade or whatever it may be. So you can hone in on that a little bit, and when they buy into that, then they have success. It's really cool.
Awesome. Kevin, you got some questions?
Absolutely. Coach, first of all, congratulations for overcoming having to coach Paul Gilman all those years ago. Obviously, you've turned that roadblock into success. So way to go there.
Thank you.
Yeah. The real question is, and I'd like to ask coaches this now because everybody on the screen is of a certain age now. We've been around a while. What's the biggest challenge you have to overcome with kids now that you maybe didn't have to overcome back in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s? Back then when we were all in our formidable years, I guess. But what are kids now? How do they drive you crazy now?
Well, I think it's interesting, and I think Paul and I may have been talking about this previously at some point. Like the big difference I see in kids is that when I started, the guys who played summer ball or ball outside of school were the one or two guys who had an interest in playing college, and everybody else kind of looked at you like, why would I take my summer up with that? I want to have fun. I want to do something else. And trying to get guys to work to improve outside of the season was difficult. Now, most of them play. And I think there's two issues with that. One is, the potential for overuse and just, you're still a kid, you're still 16, go skip rocks, go whatever, hang out with your buddies. have a life outside of just baseball, because most of you are not going to make it, and enjoy being a kid. So there's an overuse, both the physical and the mental side of that. But I also think that, everybody's got their coach. They got their running coach. They got their pitching coach. They got their hitting coach. And, what's difficult is, and I think we got great kids who listen and work with us. But I just paid this guy, $50 an hour. He must be smarter than you, who I don't pay anything to, and I don't want to get my parents upset that, I'm not listening to that guy. So we spend a lot of time now, this is where having what do assistant coaches do? Well, besides being on the field and coaching folks, we ask them to get in touch with coaches. Okay, what are you working on as a pitching coach? Are we on the same page? And that takes time. And most of the time it is. These are great people who play the game and have good knowledge. And so there's nothing inherently wrong. It's just, how many cooks can you have in that kitchen? And so we actually now spend most of our time as coaches, I would say, not on things like mechanics. When there's something obviously wrong, something's not working, we'll go there. But we talk about approach. What's your approach in the box? You're getting up there at 0-0 count. What are you looking for? Do you have a plan? That might be the best pitch you see. It's 2-0, it's 3-1, it's 2 strikes, it's whatever. This is their best player. Are you going to let him beat us, or are you going to pitch to the next guy who maybe isn't as good a hitter? So I think that's where the game has changed for coaches is, we don't have to do some of those things, and we worry about the conflicts, but we work to make sure they're not conflicts. That, we both want the kid to do well. So communication is important there.
No, that's a great answer. And it's funny. I was thinking, you guys probably get kids coming to 9th grade or whenever you start coaching them, 8th or 9th grade, way more prepared now maybe than they were before, because they have all these position coaches and all kind of. And so I like how you guys have now transitioned or moved your coaching over to the mental aspect, because they probably don't have a coach for that, right? So understanding, to your earlier point, all the crazy things that could possibly happen and how to react to them. So that's awesome. So
hey Kevin, real quickly, can I share 2 things that have changed since the late 80s? They have a fence that if you hit it over, it's counted as a home run, and they have lights. They can play night baseball now.
Yeah. That's great. So let me ask you, it's kind of a broad question, but it probably spans the time that you've been there. How do you feel St. Christopher's, and we can throw collegiate and Woodbury Forest and all the schools, and I guess that you guys play against, how do you guys compare normally, and let's just say now, to the Hanovers, the Glen Allens, the Godwins, the public schools? Is that like a rivalry to you guys? You want to play them and kind of to beat them more than you do your in conference rivals, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. We absolutely look for opportunities. It's a difficult thing because of VHSL guidelines, like the schools in our area, that district, like Freeman and Godwin and so on. They only get 20. I think it's getting bumped up, but historically they've had 20 games, 18 of which are district games. Yeah. And so they use those other 2 games to kind of get a game at the beach and a game in Northern Virginia to kind of, figure out, how they measure up. And I get that so it's hard to get on their schedule. So we've played in a couple different tournaments over the years. The old Lee Davis, now Mechanicsville, and Freeman used to run a tournament over spring break, and now it's been taken over kind of by Deep Run, and we've been in that for 6-7 years, and it's awesome because our kids want to play. the school boundaries, private and independent versus public, don't always exist in the kids' heads because they all play together in the summers on different travel teams and things, so they know each other. So we're pretty excited when we get that chance. We got that starting this Saturday. Actually, we'll play Midlothian on Saturday morning, and then we're the only independent school in it this year, and so we'll play three public schools. And historically, we've done pretty well. We've won that tournament once, and I think we've won 2 of 3 games in it most years. And that's we're looking at as a cap in our, a feather in our cap, because we're getting outside of our confines, and that's a good thing. You can't. I'll take this on a small tangent. A number of years ago, we were okay in the 90s, like mostly 500-ish, game or 2 over, maybe a game or 2 under. And I think when things changed for us, our mindset changed from, everybody thought, well, you have to be collegiate. And we sat down the coach and I said, why is that the benchmark? They're not state champions. Why don't we try to beat Paul VI or St. Anne's Belfield? Because and then if we come up short, we're going to be better than 500. And that was sort of a mindset change, I think, even in our program, that made a huge difference. So getting out and playing the public schools, and if they beat our brains in, we got a lot to learn. Okay, let's get better. That's going to make playing in our conference easier in the sense of, well, it can't be any worse than that. So there's no fear. Let's go. And I think that has made a big difference over the last 20 years.
That's awesome. Cool. Kato.
Coach, appreciate you being on. Tons of knowledge, I'm sure. And I heard the last comment, you went back to the 90s where you were good. And I'm pretty sure PG played for you in the 80s. So a little bit of heads up on that. But look, we don't have a whole lot we have Herman Moore Duncan on PG, Fitty P at UVA. So I'm sure you've got a story of Paul that stands out that we could give this guy some sports credibility. Finally. So please.
You want a positive story? You want
he doesn't know
your story of Paul Gilman. When people say, tell me a story about Paul Gilman, you got one that just jumps right out.
You can't share it on a recording.
Is it athletic related? That's what we're looking for.
He's one of those guys that's really, really hard, because he was like Mr. Good Guy. Like he was the guy that everybody looked to and said, look at he's the football quarterback. He wasn't the point guard because he was too big for that, but he was, the big basketball player. He's the shortstop. He's the captain of all of them. He's got the girlfriend. He's got the good grades. He had, there was no dirt. There was no social media then to find the dirt or record it like there is today. But he certainly presented as, Mr. St. Christopher's, Mr. Hanover County, in so many ways.
I keep hearing that he peaked in high school, and this just confirms that. So.
That's Tony's line from 4 years ago. I edited that out of Tony's episode on stories, but here we go again. We'll leave
told us that story today. It's hilarious, Coach.
I did make that comment. No. I mean, I will say that Paul was one of the guys. I was brand new to St. Christopher's, and had the opportunity to interact with him both in the classroom and on the baseball field, watch him on the basketball and football fields and courts. And, he, in all honesty, he was an impressive guy, because he was clearly talented in all those things, but also clearly respected as a leader in all those things. Other guys really followed, if Paul said, hey, we need to do such and such, they all said, okay, let's go. And that, people like to say that they're, natural leaders. And so, and I think there's a element of truth to that, but that comes with a lot of hard work too. You do things the right way over an extended period of time. Even 14 and 15-year-olds actually responded to that and follow. And he was like, so I really don't have bad stories. If you needed a hit, Paul was going to get a hit. It was like, get the lineup around to the top and I'm going to knock somebody in. And usually he did.
That's awesome. So I don't know how much recruitment Paul had, but that would be my second question, Coach, is what's your role or involvement in recruiting? Or what's the split between being proactive? Like, obviously you want your kids going to college. Most of the kids want to go to college, so you want to move it on. But how proactive are you in kind of guiding those kids to say, maybe look at these colleges, and how much what percentage are you reactive to coaches reaching out to you and recruiters reaching out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think the role of high school coaches in general is and has been limited because of all the travel ball. A lot of the interactions occur between the summer travel folks and the college coaches, which is okay. I don't have any issues with that. But it's amazing how many of the college coaches, don't take the 5 seconds it takes to get on St. Christopher's website, find who the coach is, and send them an email and say, hey, I want to talk to you. I've got this guy all day. And in my case, I was the principal for 29 years. I know everything about this kid. I mean,
right.
I can tell you what his parent support is like, what his family is like, what challenges he's faced and overcome. What his work ethic is. And, the college coaches, they got 11.7 scholarships. That money is precious. They can't just, make mistakes. And my job doesn't depend on whether anybody gets to any college or drafted or whatever. That's a nice side bonus. We're there to, educate kids and move them on their way. This can be a part of it, but it's, my headmaster isn't sitting there going, who'd you get to college this year on the baseball team? We're gonna check whether you should be employed here or not.
Right.
And so, we try to take an active approach. I try with our younger guys, our 9th and 10th graders who are indicating some interest. I try to have a meeting with them and their parents. And the first thing I ask is, do you understand what you're looking to get into? That this is a business, that, a college coach is getting paid to win games. And, he doesn't need knucklehead 18-year-olds. Like, if you are you're working for him, and he's going to want and expect results. And it's not that they're bad people. It's, the quick
business.
story. Yeah, it is. The quick story was, I was at a clinic one time with Skip Bertman, the former LSU coach and, Team USA coach, LSU athletic director. Somebody asked him a question about whether he let his catcher call the pitches or not. And if you've ever seen Skip Bertman, everything's a story. And he told about a 10-minute story. And he talked about, his house. He talked about his kids and college education and he went through this whole thing. And his point was, if you think I'm letting some 18-year-old, when we're at the University of Alabama and all these co-eds are sunning themselves up there behind the dugout, call the pitches, and I don't win games and I lose my house and my kids' college, it was a great story of like, yeah, he's getting paid a lot of money to do certain things. And, that's where the frustration comes in sometimes about them not calling. So we'll prepare that, this is what it is. It's a business. You need to understand that as soon as you make it on a college roster, they are trying to recruit somebody better than you, guaranteed. And that's just the game. So your level can't just be a little bit better. This now has to become a full-time job for you to prepare for that level. And then, if a kid is interested in particular schools and if he's heard from some, we will follow up with those coaches and say, hey, how can we help you? We know. And usually the coaches are very appreciative. To be fair to them, I think what happens is in so many high school coaching jobs turn over so quickly that there's no longevity. There's no history there. So a lot of those and probably there are coaches who don't return those calls or emails, and that's not a good thing. If you're in this for the kids, that's just wrong. But I believe it happens to the college coaches, so they just go to the folks they know.
That is the best answer I've ever heard, Tony, for that question. That was awesome.
Well, it was a long one. I assume there was something good in there you could pull out.
That's not part of how we evaluate answers to questions.
As an English teacher, it is for me.
Yeah, by the way, Tony also was my 12th grade English teacher. I don't think I fared well in that class, but maybe my memory's off a little bit.
I can look it up. I still got the books. I guarantee. It's in a closet somewhere.
I will say this. When I saw Tony, it was back in, was it last month? Was it February you had the hot stove or January?
It was January. Yeah, it was January.
And he has this binder. It's easily 3-inch binder, right?
Yeah.
And you have this digitally as well, but he has a printout of season statistics going back to what year, Tony?
Oh, it's probably certainly through the 40s. It might be through the 20s. Like anytime back in the day, they used to actually print these things in the yearbook, so you can go in and find it. It's the 70s and 80s when the world kind of changed, and we put pictures in yearbooks instead of information. Those are the lost years of the 70s and 80s. But you can go back and find statistics and things. So I just have pulled them out.
Well, you got the mid 80s straight, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It was the early 80s, maybe they weren't so.
Yeah. There's a little harder to find things under Coach Ackerman.
Well, I played under Jim Ackerman. I understand. Totally understand. All right, Coach, I think you're prepared for this at least a little bit. I gave you a couple of hours maybe to think about this. And you had asked me earlier, hey, anything I need to prepare for? I'm like, no, it's just 4 guys talking. And then we hatched this Mount Rushmore thing this afternoon. We do Mount Rushmore as a skit or segment, but the question is different, I think, almost every time. I don't think we've repeated the Mount Rushmore. Normally, all 4 of us answer, but in this case, we're just going to have you answer 2 Mount Rushmore questions. Question 1, in your 37 years, who would you say are the Mount Rushmore of high school baseball coaches?
Wow.
Yeah, I've now spent the last 2 hours kind of preparing, Paul, because that's a really hard question. I guess I'll go with this in terms of I think there's probably 2 different answers, and so I'll go sort of historical, and then I can give you a kind of a current one as well on the coaching side. I looked at and thought about kind of four things. One is longevity, because I think being someplace, wherever that may be, not necessarily 37 years or 38 years or whatever it is, but more than a 4 or 5 year kind of person. So some longevity. Coaches who it's clear their teams have been taught well, like they're and prepared, and I kind of see those as 2 different things. But they understand the game and they know what they're trying to do out there, and then they obviously have some success. And it doesn't mean they win all the games or anything like this, because I think that's one measure only of success at the high school level. Like, what are you doing with kids and things like this? So I came up with my 4, and one would be Coach Bill Chambers. Bill, who was at Collegiate and he was, as of last year, still on the sidelines coaching at Midlothian with his son. I don't know what he's doing this year. His son's moved on, but he's a legendary coach. I thought he is a guy who just prepared teams really well. He knew what your weakness was, and he was really good at attacking it. And he's just a fixture in, I think, Richmond baseball with his umpiring background and so on. So I have to have Bill on there. A guy named Vince Zebro, you would have played against him, Paul, at Norfolk Academy. Vince was there for 9 years. He was at Lake Taylor for 10, and he was at Granby for 15. And very similar old school baseball guy. Just, like Bill, knew what to run against you and what your weaknesses were and get the most out of his group. And he was an awesome guy. I'd throw in another local guy, Kenny Moore from Douglas Freeman. Didn't play against Kenny a lot, but we did in some of these tournaments and things. And Kenny had a long tenure at Freeman, and probably one of the nicest human beings, on top of the coaching piece. He always did well, had good teams. His son runs the team now, and I never have heard a bad thing about Kenny's coaching ability or the person, and that's pretty good if you've been in for a long time. And then finally, I'm going to throw in a St. Christopher's guy, not myself, and I don't know him, but by reputation, and that's a guy named P.D. Jacobs. The alums from St. Christopher's who played under him in the 50s, I mean, his name is treated with reverence. And I actually do have his, he kept remember the old marble notebooks? He kept detailed notes after games. Gilman didn't take the extra base on the throw home, and he would write that down, and they worked on that in practice the next day. But there's also a legendary story about, a controversial catch in the outfield that the umpires called an out on, and St. Christopher's was on defense, and the other team, made a lot of fuss. And Coach Jacobs just came out and said, well, why don't we just ask the boy? Because we have an honor code. And the boy said, I didn't catch it. And, I wish I were that. I could say I was that big a man. I don't know that I could do that, but he did. And those players loved playing for him. Guys like Gil Minor, kind of a legendary businessman in Richmond who played for him in the 50s. And he left St. Christopher's, went over and had another 10 or 15 years at collegiate. A good friend of his became the headmaster over there, and he went over there. And those folks felt the same way about him. We named the baseball field after him. They named the gym after him. That's the kind of coach that he was. I wish I had a chance to meet him. Even to the point where alums from both schools donated money to the other school in his name for the field and for
that's unheard of, because
I don't anticipate that happening for me.
That's your rival. That's you guys' rival, right? Collegiate?
Yes.
Is that your number one rival? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's an amazing, he was an amazing guy, obviously. So they're I think the cool thing is, I think, if we were asking this question 20 years down the road, Sean Ryan from Benedictine, Andrew Slater from Collegiate, a guy named Chris Dodolo from Cape Henry. Now he was at North. He was Hofstra's coach. Probably have to throw a guy like Billy Wagner, in there, almost to Hall of Fame status. But those are 3 or 4 quick names of current coaches who, Billy Wagner isn't just a former major leaguer coaching. He's a high school coach. He's trying to teach kids how to play the game the right way. He's not big leaguing it out there. He does all the dirty work and travel and all that. And these guys are really good coaches. That's probably another list for another time.
Tony, you mentioned Dodolo. You just played them last week, right?
Yeah, that was Friday. We're not talking about that.
Yeah, we don't have to say anything more about that.
No, we kicked it around. We were we threw 16 pitches in the first inning. I think we're down 4-0 because our team was not well prepared, or whatever these things about these Hall of Fame guys are. We did not have a good first inning, and he's a good dude though. He's a good coach.
Yeah,
Hey, Coach, I wore 24 in high school, played baseball and basketball, so I see the jersey behind you. You got a story behind the jersey?
That's an old college jersey. 44 is my number, but in college we didn't have 44, so I wore 24. And I got that I went to Haverford College just outside of Philadelphia, and we did not wear those, but those were being given away at some point from storage. You know, those are, and I was like, I'll take one of those for the wall someday. But yeah, that's where I played. Well, D3 ball.
Yeah, I was gonna say before Kenny told us his high school baseball number. It's weird. I faced Doodle. I think he was a year ahead of me. He graduated in '86 from Norfolk Academy. Yep. Billy Wagner. I came to that game last year. It was reunion weekend sort of thing, and Billy's coaching third base. And I think he told us after the game something about a kid not picking up on a bunt sign.
Oh yeah.
You tell that story?
Yeah. Well, it actually happened up at Miller, where it's very tight. The field to the dugouts is very, very tight, and so he was coaching third base, and he's very entertaining. He'll sit there and talk to our bench during the game, and he's like, "Look at this guy! Look at this guy! What's he doing?" And our kids, is he being serious? Is he like drawing us in? What's going on here? And one of their kids missed a bunt sign, and Billy had no hesitation. After, I think it happened twice, he just said, "Hey, bunt the ball." And our kids are like, "Is he serious?" It's like, yeah, he's going to bunt. He doesn't care that we know, because as we talk about, you still got to defend it. You still got to make the play. And he just wanted to, like, you're not going to get the signs? Fine. Then I'm going to, we're still going to do the right thing. But
I promise you won't miss this sign.
He does that all the time. And sometimes it's like, yeah, exactly. It's hard to get your kids to take it seriously, because they're like, is he just joking? Like, no, he wants them to bunt, and he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame or not get in the Hall of Fame because of the result against us. He's played in bigger games. He wants them to do the right thing. And so, that's the beauty of, having a major league career and that long. And
that's coaching too, right? I mean, its simple form is, I can tell you whatever, but you have to execute. So,
right. Yeah. And I think in his point too is, why aren't you looking for that? We've prepared for this. This is the situation. You should be thinking he might have me bunt here. And you're looking for the sign. And half the time, that's why guys miss it, because they're kind of surprised that this is, oh, you want me to do something here? Yeah, I know it's not basketball.
They're not thinking it through.
No, they're just thinking like, oh, I gotta get a hit.
I bet you PG's never bunted in his career. His high school career, he never bunted.
I don't think I did.
But Coach, that goes back to what you were saying earlier about the mental aspect, right? You would hope that you've kind of prepared these kids to expect, like, literally look down there. Oh, he's going to tell me to bunt because that's the right play right here. So right. Yeah, that's
yeah. We spend time on that sort of thing, and I think that's a difference for, going back to an earlier question about the difference. I think one of the things, the negative of sort of all the travel ball, fall ball, so on, they play, and that's a deliberate choice of words. They play, they don't practice. They don't practice over the summer. They go play 4 games in a tournament over the weekend. Maybe they get together once over the week to kind of hit. They might go to individual coaches to hit, but they don't sit there and say, look, it's 3-1. You're on first base. The hitter's going to get something to hit. I might put you in motion to stay out of a double play. I might put you in motion because if he hits it over the shortstop's head, maybe you score on a long single or a double. think the game. It's first and second. I'm giving you the bunt. Yeah, sacrifice. I want to move the runners up, but the third baseman probably told you he's staying back. Like they'll tell you, I got the bag. Bunt it down third base and get a hit. Like, understand the situations that are out there and how to play the game. And now all of a sudden, you got a hit and the bases are loaded and they're all, why didn't you get the ball? And, make the play and, kicking the dirt and mad. And you bunted the ball 20 feet and that's it. Like you had a big effect on the game, but you don't get seen by college coaches by bunting the ball down third base. You got to hit home runs. That's the way they think. And I've had college coaches say to me, that's the, I've seen them at like state tournament games. Like as Coach Eikenberry, who's at JMU now, when he was at VMI, like, Ike, what are you doing here? Like you've seen enough baseball this year, right? He's like, I like coming to these games because it's a game. I want to see if a guy will hit the ball to the right side and move a runner for his team, because that's the kind of guys I need to recruit at VMI. I'm not going to get the Virginia guy. I have to have guys who can play team ball, and that's what they don't see in the summers or in fall ball or whatever it is. Everybody's got to hit a double.
It's games and showcases, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't want to spend 20 minutes on showcases. That whole concept drives me nuts. All right, Tony, second or last Mount Rushmore, the Mount Rushmore of St. Christopher's baseball players.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's really hard. I'm gonna go with only guys that I've seen. So and it's a little bit of unfair, like Gil Minor. I think I mentioned him. Gil Minor was clearly a great player in the 50s, all city and all that. And I think he probably played 14 games, in a season, if we're lucky. And we're playing, if we go all the way to the state championship, 27, 28, it's statistics are very different. Yeah, I've got
that was a little different too.
Yeah. And there were no fences, as Paul said, no home runs to be hit. So I went through this and it was hard because there's so many kids. They're so good. I'm going to mention quickly Austin Waits and Kurt Fleming, who only played 2 years at St. Christopher's. Kurt was drafted by the Braves in the 8th round and eventually walked on to Clemson and was a running back in their backfield. I think he's a boxer now. Total freakish athlete, amazing. Switch hitter in high school, a all-state caliber track kid. His speed was amazing. And go to Clemson and play like fullback. So something that big that moves that fast. He was amazing. Austin Waits is an assistant coach. I think he's the main assistant now at Kansas State, drafted in the 3rd round. In the same draft as Fleming by Houston, and made it all the way up to AAA. And then Porter Reinhardt, who played at William Mary. Those 3 guys were just like different kind of athletes that deserve mentioning. And then other guys who didn't make my list, Andy Stratton, who is on our staff now, played at UNC Wilmington. Charlie McCann, Virginia Tech and Boston College, both. Carter Schmidt, who's currently playing at Randolph-Macon, just an RBI king. I mean, that kid, if a guy was on first, I think he knocked in guys who were still in the dugout. He was amazing. He has 40 some RBIs in a high school season when everyone knew don't pitch to him. He is amazing. And then Charlie Yorgan, who played at East Carolina, the team that beat Virginia in a regional in Charlottesville. Those guys were all like, they would steal your lunch money and enjoy it, like that kind of ball play. They were always going. All of them were all going to be dirty. The uniform was dirty. They were so competitive, and they always exceeded their own talent in the way they played. So I mentioned those, but my 4, I guess, are two you'll have heard, and 2 that you probably haven't. One is Casey Fox. Casey graduated in 2011, and in career stats is first in 4 offensive categories. Hits, 119 hits in high school, doubles, runs scored, and RBIs, the 4 most important offensive categories. And then he was second in career home runs. And then he also was 5th in wins on the mound. And he played at Haverford, and once, was on some D3 all tournament, not tournament, league teams and things like this. One of the most clutch performers I've ever seen. Had an amazing senior year, just good at everything. Campbell Henkel is the other. Campbell played at VMI, was the state player of the year as a senior year. Big left-handed pitcher, and right-handed hitting first baseman. He was up there in 6 offensive categories in the top 5 to 7 or so. 21 wins in his high school career and 223 strikeouts. The only guy over 200 strikeouts in a career that I'll argue with T-Bell all day long. One of Paul's friends, who is actually a very good pitcher and probably will produce some set of statistics that tells me he has 224 strikeouts. If I had to guess.
He's pulling his notebooks out now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He'll be tweeting as we speak. And then Nick Biddison, who I mentioned earlier. Nick played at Virginia Tech, was drafted in early the 4th round, not this past year, the year before, by the Dodgers. Man, he's up there in all these categories. Unlike Casey and Campbell, he missed a year for injury in high school, or he probably would have some of those records himself. Just a dynamite leader on the field, sort of like I was saying with Paul. If Nick says we got to do this, okay, we got to do this, and just an amazing young guy. And then the last is a guy whose story is still being written as well, and that's Griff O'Farrell, who's the starting shortstop for the University of Virginia, has been since his first year, and will probably get drafted in the first couple rounds this year. Wow. Team USA this past summer, Prep League Player of the Year, State Player of the Year, Gatorade Player of the Year in the state. Those, all 4 of those guys and a couple of those other guys I mentioned, the difference with those guys is they just know that there's another level, both to what they needed to do to work, but also their competitiveness. It didn't matter who they were playing, who they were facing. Oh, this guy throws 95. Great, I can hit it that much further. That's the approach. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. He seems pretty good, but they're those guys in a really tough question. But for those reasons, I throw them out there. And Paul, you were 5. No,
I'm sure my placement was triple digits. It's all good.
Now you're still up there in the career stats somewhere. I know that.
If you
tied for 5th, and his quote in the baseball yearbook was, "I'm not bunting, coach."
Oh, can you imagine this? He's 5th all time in triples with 5. Paul, can you run that far?
No. Well, hold on. Now I can't for sure, but I was not fast. Tony will tell you I was not fast. So those balls were the no fence thing probably helped me.
That's exactly what it is. The no fence.
Exactly. And 6th in walks with 37 career walks.
Because nobody wanted to pitch to me, Tony.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure he leaned into 36 of those, though.
Those don't count as walks. Those are HBPs, baby.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Kevin, do you want to ask your golf question, or are we going to skip that another week?
It's up to you guys. I mean,
Tell me, when was the last time you played golf?
Like real golf or miniature golf?
Yes. Top golf, coach.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not much of a golfer. I used a long time ago during college. I caddied at Marion Golf Club up in Philly and saw a beautiful course and saw a lot of bad golfers on a beautiful course. But never played the game. I mean, I've played a few rounds here and there, but it's been a while.
All right, I'm going to turn this into a not a golf question. Tony, you have an intimate hot stove. It's you and 3 others. Who are the other 3 people at your hot stove?
And
these can be alive or dead. They can be famous, not famous. It's whatever you
mean,
want
like that we're interviewing or that we're just having a conversation? Like I'm not.
You get to spend an hour with them.
Conversation. You're just hanging out.
Wow. So it's hot stove. So it's baseball.
Yep.
I'm baseball guys. One of them would have to be Johnny Bench. That's
how could he hold all those baseballs? Doesn't make any sense.
Unbelievable. That's one of my first memories of falling in love with the game was my grandfather sitting me down and saying, "You need to watch this boy." And Johnny Bench was, a rookie or something, second year, it was playoffs. And I did. I watched Johnny Bench, and then Johnny Bench became one of my heroes as a result. And I think he's he was the first one that changed that position. I think that position continues to evolve in lots of ways. But, he was picking balls when that was a bad thing to do. And then he was also just such an offensive threat. And I mean, come on, he's got, how many stories does he have to have about Pete Rose? I mean, that would be worth it right there.
Yeah.
So I think somebody like him, I would love to hear from Lou Gehrig. He's actually on my wall here. I've got a picture of him somewhere giving the infamous or famous, I shouldn't say infamous, the famous speech, luckiest man on the face of the planet or whatever, as knows he's dying. Because there's something there. He played with one of the greatest. I think I saw some statistic the other day. It was an unbelievable statistic that he had 187 RBIs or something one year, and Ruth had cleared the bases like some ridiculous number of times before he came up. So like he had to be incredibly clutch to do that. So I'd love to hear about the game in that era. I mean, again, he's going to have some Ruth stories in him, and that would be amazing. Whew. And what? I had one more, or is it
one more?
Yes.
One more.
Yeah, jeez.
You can't pick Shohei's interpreter.
We're not turning this into a gambling podcast. So far, you picked two amazing baseball players who played with guys who were also amazing, but had, I imagine, a ton of stories.
Yeah, no, the other one for me, it just for lots of reasons, from American history to personal tales of trying. It's somebody like Jackie Robinson. What is that? Besides the baseball, like, what did it do to him? I mean, to do that, to face things besides what was going on in the field, but all the other stuff. How do you do that? I guess I see, him and Garrick as these figures who baseball was the means, but there was so much that they could teach us all as human beings off the field, and we were lucky enough to kind of be graced with their presence on baseball, so that we got to know them and we got to see what they projected. And I'm sure they all had their warts like everybody. But I don't know. Those are some amazing people. And I might throw in like a Reggie Jackson or something like that.
Just mix it up.
He's a Philly guy. He wore 44, and Reggie's going to stir things and stir things up in his own way. But man, talk about playing under pressure and producing.
And he had Billy Martin stories. So
absolutely, yeah, that's right. And Thurman Munson, and that would be fascinating. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd need more than an hour to talk to those folks.
Yeah, probably some editing that would need to go on with a little of that. But that's all right.
It's all good. Well, Coach, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it. We want to get some of your players on with you, or not in this format. Just it will be me probably talking to you and your player. It'll be maybe a 15, 20-minute thing, but I think it's a neat thing for them to put out there for posterity, and they can point family and friends to it, and just put a vibe out there that we're trying to share as much about Virginia sports as we can.
That's awesome. Well, I don't know what you got to cut this down to, but good luck.
Hey, where are you guys playing Saturday?
We're at Deep Run High School. Yeah, that's okay. The start of the tournament, and we'll play at the travel ball time of 10 a.m. on Saturday. We play Midlothian at Deep Run on Saturday.
Well, good luck this weekend, and good luck with your season, Coach. We hope to see you out there. We'll come hang out with PG and
all right,
let you guys ball out.
Yeah, we'll get you some seats.
I might show up tomorrow for your game, Tony.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, it'll be the Billy Wagner show, and we're going to see if we're, any better than we were on Friday. We worked on that today. we're raising the temperature, as I like to say, about some things on the field today. It's like, okay, that wasn't good enough. Do we understand what the next level is? It took a little longer than I thought it might. But
hey, Coach, I haven't seen PG in a St. Chris's hat yet. So,
I have one.
Hands on 2 or 3 extra St. Chris baseball hats.
No, I have one.
We're here and available, and we will rock
that. Absolutely.
Podcast and give you a shout out. We definitely will do that. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got room for some St. Chris stuff if you got it.
I like it. I like how you're playing both sides of the city here, Richmond and VCU. That's good. That's real good. Smart.
By the way, Tony's background game is out of the box better than our background game.
Yeah. Let's see. I got my locker over there with all the gear in it.
Oh yeah. Wow.
The state championship photos over there. My wife's like, just take it all downstairs and just do whatever you want.
There you go.
You ought to see Tony's office at St. Christopher's. It looks like you're walking into Cooperstown, or at least a part of Cooperstown.
You just collect things over the years, you just gotta do something.
After he wins the state championship, we'll meet him there, and we'll do our podcast from there. So let's
Tony, how many have you won?
2.
Yeah.
2 states.
I was there for one of them. That was awesome.
Yeah. It's a fun time. I think we have a great tournament. I mean, it really did. It's going to be really competitive this year. I think even more than the last few years. There's a lot of good teams this year. It's kind of interesting how you see talent levels different years, and you go, well, there's about 5 teams that could win it this year. Some years, and this year I think there's 10. I think it's early indications are anyway.
Hey, Coach, I'm sorry. We're trying to wrap this up, and I just thought of something. How good was Russell Wilson at baseball?
Terrible. He was terrible.
Only drafted in what, the 3rd round, 4th round?
I don't remember where he was. I don't remember where he was drafted. He played as an 8th grader, and I thought, oh my. 4 years from now, we're never going to get this kid out, because I I mean, he literally, I still remember the first time he hit a ground ball to shortstop and beat it out. It was a routine play, but we had no idea, and then he proceeded to steal second, and then he proceeded to steal third, and it wasn't even close. So he was, as an eighth grader, he was amazing in that regard. And I think, he was a really good hitter at that level. Although he only hit just over 300 against us. I like to point that out.
Nice.
I kept track when he got drafted. It's like, how did he do against us? But he was obviously so clutch. The one thing he was not great, because he wasn't a pitcher, but collegiate would try to use him as a kind of a closer. And my guys love to see him come in. he was straight and flat, and it was hard, but they like, yeah, let's go. And it was fun. It was fun battles. He was great. He was at the same time as Austin Waits. Those guys were in the same class, so they had some epic battles in basketball, which was that was like a rock fight. Neither one of them were basketball players. They're just great athletes, and neither one could shoot. If they shot the ball beyond the paint, it wasn't good. But cover people and athleticism on the floor and get rebounds and stuff, amazing. Just I remember that we probably all do remember the first time we really saw like pro athletes and it could register that, oh, that's a different species. Like they're doing things that, I thought I could do, but no, that they could jump higher. They're faster. They're just twitchier. It's amazing. And both of those guys, seeing them on a high school field or court was incredible. I'm glad I didn't have to coach against him in football, because he could beat you no matter what, because he could just take the ball and you couldn't catch him. And so I don't know how they did it. Well, we didn't do it in football, I think, back in the day.
Well, thanks for allowing me to go into extra innings with the questions.
No, absolutely. I'm glad to do it. It's great. I've had fun with the conversation. So thank you for listening.
And thanks for the extra innings comment, Kevin, for a baseball coach. That was good.
Oh, absolutely. I got that.
All right, cool.
Hey, this isn't it, Coach, but we'll have you back on. We'd love to have you be a part of more of the stuff that we do. So we appreciate you being on with us. And
thank you.
Good luck to you.
Hey, Tony, hold on, Tony. If we can get Billy Wagner to say, "Hi, I'm Billy Wagner. Virginia is for sports." We get that to happen.
I'll see tomorrow. He kind of ignores me. He big leaguing me until and then if he gets in the hall, who knows what'll happen. I'll see what I can do. He always usually looks at me like, "What do you got going now?" Like, no, it's not for me, Billy. It's
for
a
some
friend.
Random guy from 4 decades ago.
That's right.
I love it.
He's got a podcast that like 8 people listen to. Billy, come on.
Hey, we're in double digits, Tony.
No, I meant your other one.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, I can see these guys are carrying you. This will go further. This is all right.
Hey, Tony, you're welcome for me not bringing up the spring break '87.
Yeah. Well, we all have origin stories, and that's mine.
That's yours, no matter what the story. Yeah, there you go. That's the Tony that he likes to verbally spar. It's good times.
Well, you guys are doing great stuff, so I appreciate you having me.
We love doing it. Thanks for being on, man.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
All right. See y'all later.
We'll see you, Coach.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. He's a thoughtful dude.
Fellas, man, what a fun guy, dude.
Yeah, so I got him as a 24-year-old assistant baseball coach and 12th grade English teacher.
That's awesome. PG, what do you want to say to get us out of here and end this thing?
I want to say that it's baseball season, it's softball season. There are other sports at play, and we're trying to record as many athletes and coaches as we can for those sports. So check us out going forward. And if you've got your own videos you want to share with us, please do so.
Where can they find us?
I don't know. Where
can they email us? info@virginiaisforsports.com. You can send info if you want us to cover something. We're happy to entertain it and go out there and do something fun. Guys, great episode. PG, awesome bringing Coach Tony on, man. What a great episode.
Cool.
Hey, and don't forget to look for us on Facebook and Instagram and X and TikTok. VA is for sports. We're out there. We're out there.
Yeah, and Brent Scopel, you're probably the only one listening right now or making it to the end of this episode. Send us your favorite college or high school from Virginia, a baseball cap or a headband or something like that.
Ooh.
P.O. Box 1807, Ashland, Virginia 23005.
You guys got the P.O. Box memorized. You got to send something now. 2 up, 2 down. We're out.